Okay, for these next notes, there's only 4 topics. There are only 4 topics, and the reason why is these are some more, I don't want to say tricky or harder, because they're really not that hard or tricky, but they are if you don't have instruction and you have to sit there and try to read on it. They're actually pretty easy if you can follow formula, substitution, and resolution. Honestly, that is going to be your saving grace on these problems, knowing the formulas, okay? The first one is identifying congruent segments in a plane. So remember, a segment, a line segment, is a piece of a line, okay? Congruent segments are same size. By the way, I don't know if I told you guys this, but if you have congruent segments, this is how you show it in geometry. You put like a little line across it. If you have congruent angles, you put a line. Sometimes we do this, like put a little line across it, or like say you have another angle. Let's say you have another angle that's congruent. It's kind of an aside, but it's kind of important. So let's say we had another angle that was attached here. You would put either 2 bars like this, or sometimes they put 1 bar with 2 lines like that, okay, to show that they are congruent. This is how we show congruency in geometry. But what I wanted to show you, oh wait, I bet I can't do that now. Shoot, just a second. Let me see if I screwed this up by doing what I just did. Unlock all. Let me see if I can erase this. I can. Yay. Okay, let me erase this real quick. Okay, I'm not going to erase that other stuff because I think it gets too close, and I'll erase my problem. All right, so this one is about identifying congruent segments. And the only way you can tell what size they are is you have to use the distance formula. Okay, I did the distance formula in the notes yesterday. So I'm not going to teach that per se, but here it is. Okay, here are your endpoints, PQ, RS, ST, and TV. Okay, what they're going to give you are the coordinates, okay, of these points. So you have to find the distance. Here it is. Find the length of each segment. Find the exact answer, not a decimal. That means you leave it in the square root, okay? And then you have to figure out which ones are congruent. You guys, this is one of the worst problems that Alex gives you because you have to do 3 long problems. And if you get one of them wrong, it'll make you do another 3. So you want to be so careful about this. So what I you need to do is formula, substitution. So let's decide which one is x1, y1, and x2, y2. It doesn't matter. You just need to decide. All right. So then you go d equals the square root of, and you get x2 negative 8 minus 0 squared plus 8 minus 5 quantity squared. D equals the square root of negative 8 squared plus 3 squared. D equals the square root of 64 plus 9. D is equal to the square root of 64 plus 6 to the 9 gets me to 73. Okay, so that's the answer to this one. Okay, I'm going to shrink it down just a little so I can move it. Okay, there. All right, so now that's the blue one. Now I'm going to do a different color for RS. Okay, now this is tedious AF, you guys. I'm sorry about that. It really is. Okay, so I got my formula here. I'm going to go to the right and plug in points. Okay, decide which one is x2, x1. I think I'll just leave it like this just to make it simple. 1 minus 7 quantity squared plus 1 minus 2 quantity squared. D is equal to the square root of negative 6 quantity squared plus negative 1 quantity squared. Well, I shouldn't even say quantity. It's just a square. 36 plus 1. D is equal to the square root of 37. So you can see that these two are not congruent. Okay. So third one, let's do it in green. Okay. So now I have my formula. I'm going to just keep using the same formula because I need the space more than anything. Okay, I'm going to shrink it down yet again, move it up a little, and I'm going to find TV. So, ready? Square root of, and then I'm going to go -3 minus -8 squared plus 0 minus -4. Okay. D is equal to the square root of, and then it's -3 plus 8, which is 5 squared, plus 4 squared. So D is equal, wow. Okay, so this is 25 plus 16. Unless I screwed up, I got a really odd case where nothing is equal. This is 1, I think this is 41. Look, nothing is equal. So you can't check any of these. Okay, none of these are congruent to the same size. So I would put none of these are true. I don't think I've ever seen one where none of these are true. But that's how you solve it. And I apologize, just be super careful, okay? Really keep your notation nice and clean. And I promise you, you will make less mistakes. Highlight if you need to, take a highlighter and like if you need to, you could take a highlighter and then highlight these negatives, like just to, well, that's too big of a highlighter, whatever, but you get the idea. Okay. All right. Next one. Okay. Midpoint formula. Here we go. Oops. Okay. Here we go. So the midpoint is the point that's halfway in the middle. Okay. So it finds the midpoint M. So they want you to find some point M. Okay. And it's giving you S, which is -8, 5, and T, which is 0, 1. They want you to find the midpoint. Okay, copy this down. You need the midpoint formula, and it goes like this. Okay, all you do, okay, remember we're looking for a point. So this is going to be a point. I'm drawing it big because it fits. Okay, you are going to add the x's, x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and you're going to add the y's. Okay, and I'm going to erase this midpoint that where it says midpoint. No, I'm not because I didn't lock that down. Okay, so instead I'm going to lock everything else from here now down, okay? All right, so what I wanted you to see is that midpoint, I'm looking for a point. I could call this x3, y3 if you wanted to, x3, y3. In other words, it's a third point. This is, let's call this one is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Right? Okay, that 1, 2, and 3 just means like the number of points. X1, y1 is 0.1, x2, y2 is 0.2, x3, y2 is 0.3. Okay, so I'm going to actually, instead of writing midpoint, I want you to realize you're going to get a point. You're going to get a midpoint in a point. Like these are the coordinates. Okay, so what I want you to see is that x, the midpoint, hey, you know what I should do? Instead of 3, ooh, let's get fancy. Let's put an M. That means x of the midpoint. The x of the midpoint is equal to this thing right here, x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And that means that the y of the midpoint is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. Do you see it? It's right there. Let me try to highlight it and see if that works. See, you guys, look. This is what we're finding, and this is that one. Okay? This is the x, and it's because it says equal. See this equal sign? That means they're equal. All right. Now, I'm making a big deal about this because once you name all your points, you just have to fit them in. Now, the midpoint formula is super easy, but we're heading into a problem that a lot of kids have difficulty with, which is not as easy. It's actually just as easy if you know what you're doing. All right, so here we go. In this case, we're going to take x Whoa, I'm on highlighter. Let's try getting back on a pen. Boom, there we go. So x of the midpoint is equal to -8 plus 0 divided by 2. And y of the midpoint is equal to, add my y's, 5 plus 1 divided by 2. Therefore, the point is x of the midpoint is equal to -4 divided by 2. I mean, -8 divided by 2, my bad. -8 plus 0 is -8. And then that is equal to -4. Okay? The y of the midpoint is equal to 6 divided by 2, which is equal to 6 divided by 2, and I wrote a 3. I'm sorry, peeps. In my head, I'm doing the math too fast, and I'm writing the answers. Okay, so I did an arrow so I don't have two equal signs in the same line, just for the sake of knowing that that's where it went. The arrow showing this went to that. Okay, so what is my midpoint? My midpoint is -4, 3. Okay, let's try another one. Pause it here if you want to try it and see if you get it. Okay, so midpoint formula, substitution, resolution. Okay, so here we go. x1, x2. -2 plus 6 over 2. y1 by 2. This is negative, oh, it's not -4, it's +4. This is 4 over 2, comma, bring down the comma, bring down the parentheses, -6 over 2, and then that equals, I guess I could keep writing midpoint, 2, comma, -3. And that's the midpoint. And look, it looks like it. 2, -3. Okay? 2, -3. That's the midpoint. Now the midpoint's kind of easy. The next problem is asking you to find the endpoint. Here, let me make it bigger so you can see. Okay? It says the midpoint of ST, so look, here's ST, is 6, 3. So they're giving you the midpoint. Okay? One endpoint is 8, 5, and now we're looking for T. What is the other endpoint? Okay? So you're still going to use the midpoint formula, okay? But you have to know how to plug things in. So I want you to look up there if you need it, but I wrote x of the midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2. Y of the midpoint is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. By the way, I will let you use notes on your tests. So I encourage you to write these formulas down, okay? So the x of the midpoint, well, what is the x of the midpoint? It's right there. So plug in. So formula, substitution, resolution. What is the x of the midpoint? 6. What's x1? Right there. Okay, x1 is going to be this guy right here, 8. Okay, 8 plus, we don't know what x2 is, you guys. We don't know what x2 is. That's what we're looking for. So see how we're looking for the end point? We have the midpoint. Okay, so this is x2 over 2. Now you need to solve for x2. So this is the case where you got to get rid of the 2 first, because this whole thing is being divided by 2. We've got to get rid of the fraction. If you want to get rid of a denominator, multiply by it. This 2 will cancel with that 2. Okay, see, because it's multiplying, so we can cancel. Okay, 12, we can take this out of parentheses, 8 plus x2, and x2 is equal to 4. Subtract 8 from both sides. Okay, I guess I should still show work. I just want you guys to get ready, get used to it. So 4 is the x. Now the y. The y of the midpoint is equal to 3. So here we go. 3 equals y1, which is 5, plus y2 over 2. Multiply. Oh, by the way, did you guys know that this is a proportion? You could literally cross multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 5 plus y 2 is 5 plus y2. Subtract 5 from both sides, and you get y2 equals 1. And that is the answer. That is the endpoint. And does it make sense? It does. Look, you guys, 8, 6, 4. See? It went over by 2. 5, 3, 1. See? Went over by 1. Over by 2. All right, so let's try this one. I'll move it a little bigger so you can see it again. Okay. Here we go. Okay, the midpoint is here. The endpoint is here. We're looking for the other endpoint, so use the formulas. X of the midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2. Y of the midpoint is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. All right, x of the midpoint, negative 1. x1 plus x2. Doesn't matter if you picked x1 or x2 to be the unknown. It doesn't really matter. Y. 5 of the midpoint is equal to 7 plus y2, all over 2. Okay? Multiply by the denominator to get rid of it. But if we put that times 2, we actually need to put that in parentheses or else we screw up our math. Okay, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Take away the parentheses so you can work with it. Oops, why am I subtracting x? Let's try actually subtracting the 4. Get rid of the 4. Negative 6 equals x2. And then times 2, parentheses here, times 2. 10 equals, these cancel, 7 plus y2. Subtract 7. And you get, see how I put a line, guys? 3 equals y2. So the point is negative 6, 3. All right, next. Okay, now this one is definitely one that kids had trouble with. It is finding a point that partitions a segment in a given fractional relationship. So a little trickier. It says point K lies on JL. Okay, so there it is. It's like, ooh, there it is, woo. Find K so that JK is 1/5. In other words, what they're saying, 1/5 of JL, we're going to divide this into 5 pieces. Ooh, that was bad. I did not divide that equally. Let's try again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's pretend that's 5 equal pieces, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? They're asking you to put K right here at 1 out of the 5. 1, just 1/5, okay? In other words, they want 1/5 of the distance. So let's write this in English. Sometimes it's helpful to write it in words, okay? K is going to be 1/5 of the distance between J and L. Okay, so think about that. What do we need to take 1/5 of something? We need the distance. What does of stand for? Multiplication. So 1/5 means we're going to multiply the distance by 1/5 to get the size of this. Okay, this is going to be the size of that space. Okay, so the distance, actually, the easiest way to do this is to find the distance between, hang on. Trying to think of the best way to explain this. Hang on. Oops. Wait, where's my thing? Hang on a moment, you guys. I don't want to make this harder. I don't want to make you more confused. Let me think about this. Okay, I think I'm going to show you guys what I think is the easiest way to understand that. And let's look at it as a triangle from point to point. So here's this point. It's at 22, negative 22, 25. Okay? You're going down to this point, 3, negative 5. Okay, The easiest way I think to understand this, you guys, is to understand that there's a to get from here, if you guys had to walk on a street, for example, instead of this is like as the bird flies, right? So a bird can go this way. It's like, this is my, oh wait, I did that the wrong direction. That looks like a mustache. Let's try that again. Okay, so here we go. So like a bird can fly this way, right? It can fly here, but let's pretend you had to go by the streets, okay? This point K is 1/5 of the distance. Now, what that means is that it's literally going to be 1/5 of this distance down. It's going to be 1/5 of there and 1/5 of this distance. Okay. So it's going to be basically, if we were to cut, let me try to get that in a better spot. Okay. Cut this into 5 pieces. Okay. And cut this into 5 pieces. Okay, K is going to be where it's 1/5 here and 1/5 here. Okay, there. I'm going to move that up. There, I'll just make it thicker. There we go. There's K. Okay, so what you could do is find this distance and find 1/5 of it. Okay, so what is the distance between the Y's? Because remember, this is the Y distance. So we climbed from, this was -5, right? Here's my Y here. I was at -5, and now I'm going to climb up to 25. Okay, if you want to find distance, you can always just take 25 minus, like subtract the numbers, is how you find a distance. 30. Okay, in other words, we're going from -5 and we're climbing all the way to 25 to get up to here, you guys. That's 30. What is 1/5 of 30? It's 6. So it's going to be 6 units. So you count 6 units down from 25. In other words, 25 minus 6. 25 minus 6 is 19. So the Y of that point is 19. So it's kind of a process, right? You might want to write this down. Okay, first you have to find the fractional units. Like, what is the fraction? This is the fraction. Then you need to figure out which direction you're going and figure out where you end up from 25 down, okay? Or from whatever point down. So here, look, you guys, we started here at -22. This is how we got there. We went -22, right? And up 25. So to get from here to here, we went from -22 to 3. Again, if you want to find distance, subtract 3 minus -22 is 25. So that means the distance between on the x we're traveling is 25. What is 1/5 of 25? It is 5. 5 units. So where would I be if I move 5 units from -22? You got to go -22 and you got to go in the positive direction because we're going to the right, and that's going to end up at -17. So the answer is -17. You might want to watch this problem over again. I am going to do another problem like it. Okay, so look at this problem. Now we want 1/6. Okay, I'm going to tell you that this is probably going to be everybody's last problem that they do, unless you get this. And maybe that'll be okay, you guys. It's a good challenge for some of you. It really is. All right, so point Q lies here. We want Q so that PQ, that's important too. It means that we're taking off from P. PQ is 1/6. So now we want to have, right? We're cut it into 6 pieces and we want to go 1/6. So let's figure out the whole distance on the Y and the whole distance on the X. And then we cut it by 6. Okay, so let me get rid of my little arch here. Okay, so how far did we travel? Let's figure out our X first. Okay, for the X. How far did we travel? Well, we traveled from -3 all the way to 21. Okay, that would get you at 24, but you can just subtract 21 minus -3. Okay, how far did we go? 24. Okay, what is 1/6 of 24? It is 4. 24 divided by 6 is 4. So that means 4 units. So let's start at P, -3 plus 4, because we want to go that way, 4 units. Okay, we're going to go -3, 4 is equal to 1. So therefore, it's 1. Now let's figure out the y. Okay, the total distance in the y is, we went from, let's see, you guys, I have to actually erase this because I need to be able to see the actual numbers. Okay, here we go. We went from 1 to -17, or if you go from the most negative number up, you went from, we need to find the distance between 1 and -17. So for the y, we need to find the distance between 1 and -17. Always take the positive number and subtract the negative number for the distance. Distance is actually absolute value. You guys, you really could have done it like this too. Just for those of you that are actually, thinking about this, distance is always absolute value. So if I had started with a -17, I would put -17 minus 1, which is -18. The absolute value of -18 is 18. Sorry, take it out of the absolute values. Thank you. But here, if you start with the most positive number, you end up always getting the positive number, okay? So the distance is 18. All right, so that means, okay, we need to take 1/6 of that distance. What is 1/6 of 18 over 1? It's 18 over 6, or 3. So that means 3 units. So now we're going to count down, because remember, we're starting at P. So we go from 1 and we have to go down 3 units. So where would we end up? 1 minus 3 is -2. And you end up at -2. Okay, and that is the answer to that problem. And that is the end of these topics, so that you can work on them over. I probably will give you a little more time to finish down to 20 for the weekend. So I really want you to actually get through these.